Hey everyone, it's Jonathan, and welcome to the 100th episode of the Disney Movie Marathon. Today I'm joined by Mark and Nicki, and we're talking about Walt Disney's 16th animated feature, Sleeping Beauty. I can't believe we finally hit 100 episodes. I've been doing the Disney Movie Marathon since 2018. This started out as a video series and then transitioned into an occasional podcast on my YouTube channel. And then I spun it off into its own podcast a few years ago, and now we're at episode 100. Joining me for this milestone episode is fellow animation and Disney history fan Mark Brown, as well as Nicki from Trivial Theater. Sleeping Beauty is one of Nicki's all-time favorite Disney films, so I'm so glad she was able to join us for this one. This is also one of my favorites, especially when looking at just the films from Walt Disney himself. Sleeping Beauty is one of the most beautiful and artistic films he's ever made. It has amazing music, memorable characters, and one of the best Disney villains of all time. Not to mention one of the best dragons in all of cinema. There's not much more to say by way of introduction, so let's just get right into the show.
I will say, I've had the movie for ages. I have not watched this movie in untold legions of time. And it's interesting, like, what you remember and because this is my favorite Disney princess.
Oh, nice.
And not that, like, the princesses, when I was a kid, were big, but as you age, I guess for me, they didn't hold on as much. But, like, the story really isn't about Aurora. It's really about, like, the good fairies and, like, the prince, you know?
It really is. The fairies are kind of the stars of the movie.
They really are.
They put everything in motion. Like, without them, none of the movie would happen.
And it's not like it's done out of malice or anything.
No,
it's because the whole point of Sleeping Beauty is she has to be sleeping.
Right.
Aurora's doing everything. I think Aurora gets a lot of flack, and which I don't like. And I'm with you, Nicki. Like I enjoy Aurora a lot. She's one of my top favorite Disney princesses as well.
Very much.
But I think she does 100% of what's required for her for the role. And
oh yeah.
I mean, I feel it's a little bit of victim blaming kind of when people get mad at her, like, oh, why didn't she do more or something? But it's like, I don't know. I feel she did as much as she could have while still being a very interesting character.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
And I was one of the weird ones that I know most people love Maleficent as a character, but like I never, she was never my favorite Disney villain. I didn't hate her, but like for most people, she's like the favorite or like top three. But I don't know, for as long as I knew, she was never like my top one or three, but like this last viewing was actually the most I actually like Maleficent as a character. So maybe I'm growing on her. I think a lot of it has to do with Eleanor Audley's amazing voice acting. Yeah.
I would agree. I heard a thing too. They were, and sorry, slight tangent, but they were talking about Hocus Pocus, and like they kind of took you through life and were like, well, when you're a little kid, you're the Sarah Jessica Parker character, and then when you get older, you're Bette Midler's character. And then when you get like to proper adulthood, you're more like, I can't think of her name. The other
Jimmy.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're just looking around trying to keep up, and all you want is a cookie. So I think it's one of those things where, like with Maleficent, as you get a little older, you can kind of say, okay, you know what? You completely slighted me for like a bad reputation. Yeah, I'm gonna curse your kid. Good. Yeah. What else would I do?
This was the first time I had watched Sleeping Beauty in ages. I don't remember the last time I had watched it. Like, it's always one that, like, I feel like I know the movie because I saw it so many times years ago, but not having not watched it in years, I kind of forgot how, like, gorgeous this movie is.
This movie is spectacular and mesmerizing.
Yeah. I was just watching it thinking, I wish they could do a movie like this today. It would probably be way too expensive. They probably would never do it, but just the paintings of the backgrounds, like everything just looked so amazing.
It did. Well, I think you get some of that with like the Secret of Kells and some of those are so pretty.
Yeah.
But you're talking like when you're talking modern Disney or modern any of these, really, there are very few instances where you're going to find that kind of passion to pull down this kind of look.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, what we get now is Wish, you know. Which
the less said about that movie, the better in my mind.
Causes me to get hives.
I feel you and me are on the same page.
I think so. One thing too with this one that was interesting was it's such a strange, like it works very well, but because they're trying to balance out like the story something for adults to like and something for kids to like. But you get the kind of like, I mean, they say hell in this, which for 1959, wow, that I mean, in a kids or a G-rated movie. But on the other side, you get like all of the weird like flying monkey, minion things. Prince Philip's dad.
Oh, he worked. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh my God, the whole toast scene. I forgot how
Scumps.
good that was. Yeah, I forgot how good that was.
I forgot how weird that was. It's like, what is this?
It's almost and not to I'm not downplaying this or trying to raise up Looney Tunes, but
Mhm.
some parts of it in look and in style almost kind of have a Looney Tunes vibe about them, just with that kind of humor.
It's definitely the humor
Yeah.
scene of the film.
The minions too, they are kind of Looney Tunes-esque,
Yeah.
especially that scene where she's grilling them on like,
And all the cradles.
why haven't
Yep.
you found the princess yet? And then she figures out through questioning them that they've been looking for a baby for 16 years.
Which it just works perfectly.
It does. It understands the assignment, but it doesn't take itself too seriously.
Yeah.
So I've probably seen this movie more often than in recent years than you get to have. So like I actually saw it maybe last year recently because I was doing a rewatch of the canon. So I
Nice.
remember most of it. But it's still a joy to me. It's in my top, probably my top 15 or 20 Disney films. I have to look back at my rating.
Apparently, this was in development in some way, shape, or form since the 30s. Like he
Yeah, it's
considered making it in 1938 for the first time, I believe, and didn't
Wow.
didn't end up fully making it until the 50s. And then I also thought it was interesting that he searched for 3 years to play for someone to play Aurora and almost considered shelving the project when he couldn't find someone before he finally found Mary Costa.
And you think about the amount of lines, and obviously she's your title character. You want a
yeah.
very specific tone, but for the amount of lines that she actually speaks, each line is worth all of that commitment.
Hmm.
No, each line is like gold, really,
Oh,
that she says.
100%. Like her hair.
Like her hair. I think that was one reason I liked her as a kid. I liked her, I liked her hair.
It is good. It's
Yeah.
it's it's all flowy and locky and stuff.
hmm
Now, was Mary Costa the singing voice as well?
Yes, I think that's part
Because
of.
she was an opera, like a trained opera singer, if not
Oh,
mistaken.
gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's part of what he was looking for.
Actually, we should do a shout out. She's actually still alive. So if for some reason she's watching this or listening to this, I doubt she is. She's like 94, but hey, you never know. Hello,
Yeah.
Miss Costa. We love you.
Yes.
I did write that down, and I will say that we are recording this in October 2024, and there have been probably more than one time where we have mentioned someone like, oh wow, I can't believe they're still alive. And then they died by the time the episode came
Oh
out.
yeah, oh yeah. Jonathan and I did a Secret Garden one where we talked about Honor Blackman, and then by the time it got posted, she had passed.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Miss Costa, please do not blame us.
Part of the reason that she got the part was she was at a party with her future husband, who was Frank Tashlin, which I had no idea that they were married. He's like an animator for Warner Brothers. Like he worked on a lot of Looney Tunes. I don't think they were married for that long, but I was still surprised that they were at one point married. But that's part of why she ended up getting the part, was because they had gone to a party where I believe she was singing, and then Walter Schumann, who was the film's composer at the time, the music went through a couple of different workarounds. So at the time, this guy was working on the music. He heard her singing and then told Walt, and then they brought her into audition. She apparently at the time had a strong Southern accent, which nearly prevented her from being cast until she proved that she could sustain a British accent. And eventually they figured out, yeah, she's perfect. Apparently, within hours of the audition, Disney called her personally to tell her that she had the role.
Nice.
Wow. I wouldn't even call her voice British in the movie, but I guess more what they call it,
Maybe
European.
transatlantic.
transatlantic, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, that's actually a really good way to state it.
Posh American. I like to describe it as.
Yeah. For being raised in a wood chopper's cabin in the woods, it's quite a posh accent.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would not have guessed that she had a Southern accent in real life.
no way. And she never her acting credits are very sparse. Like she never, this was probably her biggest thing she's ever did.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, as far as I could tell, it was.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I know for the time you had a lot, like obviously they had their stock of voices that kind of that they went to do all the voices, but I couldn't believe the amount of voices that I recognized across the
Yeah,
board.
Hmm. Yeah,
especially
a
Flora
huge.
and Merriweather.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Yeah, no, the voice cast was great. I had to, of course, write everybody down and different things that I would know them from.
Mhm.
But like, of course, I think Flora and Merriweather are probably the biggest names for
Yeah,
Hmm.
Disney because Flora is Verna Felton, and I'm sure we've talked about her in other podcasts because she's been a whole bunch of like extremely famous Disney characters, like the fairy godmother in Cinderella, Queen of Hearts in Alice in Wonderland, and Aunt Sarah in Lady and the Tramp. I think my
Mrs. Hati in Jungle Book.
I was just gonna say I think my
Yeah,
favorite like trivia about her is that her first role for Disney was an elephant and her last role for Disney was an elephant.
an interesting trivia about her. Not it's not fun. It was sad, but it's she died either one day before Walt or one day after Walt. I can't
Oh
remember, but
wow.
they both died right after each other.
Hmm. And I don't know if this is true, but it is thought that she also voiced the Queen in this movie.
Yeah, that's what I saw because there's no record of that.
Well,
Yeah,
she has like maybe two half lines in the grand scheme.
yeah, she has hardly any lines, but I was listening for it when I watched it, and I could see why it is assumed that she was that character because she does sound a lot like her.
She's incredibly beautiful. You see where Aurora gets it from. She's on my animated crushes list.
Nice. Oh, she's beautiful. Yeah.
Yes.
And then Barbara Letty as Merriweather, and we of course talked about her when we did the Lady and the Tramp episode, but she also did I don't know which character this is, Rover in 101 Dalmatians, and she was also Kanga in the original Winnie the Pooh shorts.
Oh.
Was Rover one of the cows in the shed?
I'm not sure.
I thought that's who she voiced, one of the cows, but
I just saw in her list of credits was Rover in 101 Dalmatians. And it might be longer since I've watched
hmm.
101 Dalmatians than I've seen this. But
Yeah.
we're going to be doing that soon, so I'll be rewatching it and
So
listening to
stay
figure out
tuned,
who
folks.
Rover is.
Yeah, exactly. Do not wait with bated breath though, because it's going to be more than a few minutes.
Okay, Rover, according to Wikipedia, is one of the puppies,
Okay.
but I don't remember that one.
There's 101 of them, so I don't.
That's true.
It's a lot of voices.
And they all don't talk. So
True. I was personally a big fan, and just his voice is so. Just you imagine sitting down and having a beard with him and him like regaling you with tales. Bill Thompson as King Hubert.
yeah,
I love the voice.
he's perfect.
Oh, 100%. He was amazing in Lady and the Tramp, and just he's got one of those voices. Like you want
Mhm.
to hear him talk.
He's got one of those voices that looks so different than what he looks like.
Oh,
It's
100%.
like, whoa, you're the guy? Oh, wow.
Well, he played a very jovial, very husky king and
Yeah,
a bloodhound.
there you go. That's range.
100%.
I feel like because I forgot who played him, so I had to look him up. I was like, oh wait, Mr. Smee? Like I
Yeah,
think he
yeah.
has a different he can do a bunch of voices because Mr. Smee is so different than King Hubert.
He's one of those voice acting extraordinaires from back in the day.
Oh yeah. He's like
Yeah.
Mel not he's not quite Mel Blanc, but he's kind of Mel Blanc.
He's like Paul Frees level, I guess, that level.
Hmm.
And then the other king is Taylor Holmes, King Stephen, and he was more a Broadway and silent film actor. He was 80 when this movie came out, and it was his final film role because he passed away 8 months later.
I wasn't too blown away by his performance, but I think it also worked for the character.
Yeah, he didn't have as much to do as King Hubert did.
Yeah. That's probably why. I heard that Hans Conried was auditioning for the role, but I could totally see that though.
Yeah. Hans Conried was also in here.
Really?
He played Lord Duke. I don't remember which character that is.
Lord Duke. Wow.
He's uncredited. Like there's a whole bunch of uncredited voice actors, mostly like Disney staples, because you've got Bob Amesbury, Billy Bletcher, Candy Candido, Pinto Colvig, all as Maleficent's goons.
I think the last voice we haven't talked about is Prince Philip himself.
Prince Philip was Bill Shirley. and he was an actor and singer. This is his best known role. I had never heard of him before this.
I knew him. I know him also as a singing voice in Freddie Einsford Hill in My Fair Lady.
Okay.
Jeremy Brett plays Freddie Einsford Hill in that film, and he has a song to sing. And this actor, I forget his name, he does the singing voice for Jeremy Brett.
I also thought it was interesting, and I wrote it down because I thought you two would find this interesting. The Prince, like he did some of the live action references for the Prince, but the Prince was more based on the actor Ed Kemmer, who also they like traded off doing the live action references. And Ed Kemmer was the flight engineer in the Twilight Zone episode Nightmare at 20,000 Feet.
Oh,
Ah,
nice.
yes. You know what Nikki and I would love.
Oh yeah. Twilight Zone is close to my heart.
Yeah, I figured I should mention that because I knew two Twilight Zone super fans were joining me. There was one fairy we didn't talk about,
Fauna.
Barbara Jo Allen as Fauna, and this is probably her best known role. She didn't do a ton for Disney. She was in a short called Goliath the Second, or maybe Goliath 2. I'm not sure exactly. I have not seen that. It's about an elephant.
Yeah, I think Brendan Felton's in that. There's a lot of animation from Goliath 2 that's recycled in the Jungle Book.
Yeah, I read that. I figured because elephants.
Mhm.
But she was also the scullery maid in Sword in the Stone. But like I mentioned earlier, the music kind of went through a bunch of different phases when they were deciding what to do, because I think it was originally discussed that they would use the ballet, but then they kind of got rid of that idea for a while because they thought it might be too hard to adapt the ballet as a score. And then they hired a bunch of songwriters, and I think they were going for a more like Broadway style score. But then eventually they got Ivan Earl on as the art director. And after they started seeing all the paintings that he was coming up with, they decided to go back to the ballet because they didn't feel like the Broadway type songs would go with this medieval stylized design that they had pivoted to.
But it would have been interesting if they had kept the Broadway style, because then I guess that would have been the first film in the Disney canon to have like Broadway style show tunes. Because I guess in modern Disney we only have it by the Renaissance, I guess.
Yeah, 'cause I was trying to think, did they ever do anything Broadway inspired until Little Mermaid?
I don't think anything of like major, or like maybe like one song here and there.
Yeah.
Maybe Perfect Isn't Easy from Oliver and Company. But again, that was also Howard Ashman.
I was thinking of that, but I wasn't sure because Oliver and Company is very poppy.
Yeah.
I will say though, even back with this and probably ones before it, you still had quite a bit of like you had that one song that kind of stood out. Like I remember when I was a kid, my mom would sing "Once Upon a Dream" to me.
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
That's the hit song.
It is very much.
At times, I would say that's my favorite Disney love song ever.
It is. It's just so sweet.
It is.
Yeah. It's one of those that I feel like has been done to death, but I don't say that in a bad way like I do with like When You Wish Upon a Star, because there's I don't know if you guys remember this or were familiar with it, but around the time when I was a teenager and maybe early 20s, there was a series of albums called Disney Mania. And I was
Yeah.
kind of obsessed with those for a while. It would be every album would be a new list of songs from Disney movies, but done by modern pop stars. And I was just sick of them doing When You Wish Upon a Star over and over and over again. Because like it's almost every album would have a different version of that on it. I was like, do the Monkey's Uncle, which they did actually do that one time. I wanted something off the beaten path.
Wow,
Something
they actually
different.
did the Monkey's Uncle.
Yes, one of the albums had the Monkey's Uncle on it. But I think that Once Upon a Dream is one of those that has been done a lot, but I never mind this one. There's something about this one that I don't mind hearing many times. The way I kind of got sick of like When You Wish Upon a Star or Zippity Doo Dah, the other ones that they would do over and over again. It's just a really good song.
It is.
Like something to clarify, if you guys know, because I was confused. Is the music of Once Upon a Dream, is it directly from the ballet, or did they like change anything to it, or is it verbatim from the ballet?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I can't think that
I'll
it-
look at
never
it. I
heard
was
of the
thinking
ballet.
it was like inspired, but I don't know that it was like
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah, I couldn't quite like get a answer from what I was like researching, but I never actually listened to the ballet either. So
The melody is based on Grande Valse Villageois, nicknamed the Garland Waltz from the 1890 Sleeping Beauty ballet by Tchaikovsky. So the melody is based on the ballet,
Okay.
but the music based on that, but adapted by George Bruns, who eventually did all the music for this movie. And then the lyrics were written by Jack Lawrence and Sammy Fain, who I believe were two of the writers before they brought on George Bruns. So that might have been like a leftover when they were going for the more Broadway-esque.
Broadway. Hmm.
So I don't know if it was, they probably had different music at that time, but the lyrics were by them. And then George Bruns, I guess, took those lyrics and put them to the music from Tchaikovsky's ballet.
Okay. Look, like just another thing, like whenever I watch an older Disney movie and I see music by George Bruns, I always read it as George Burns, and I have to remember, wait, it's not George Burns who did the music.
He wasn't standing around with a giant stogie.
With a giant stogie and Gracie nearby.
I'm on the Once Upon a Dream Wikipedia page, and it has a little section about different times it was adapted. American girl group No Secrets recorded Once Upon Another Dream, whose chorus is based on Once Upon a Dream, for the 2-disc release of Sleeping Beauty, which was then included in the 2004 album Disney Mania 2. And then Emily Osment covered Once Upon a Dream for Princess Disney Mania. Well, it was covered for the Platinum Edition release of the film, which I think that might have been the DVD that we had. Yeah. I remember at one point they were releasing a whole bunch of really special edition DVDs, and we were trying to buy them all.
Yeah, I think that got a platinum. Mm-hmm.
And then that version was included on the album Princess Disney Mania, and then it was covered again by Lana Del Rey for Maleficent in 2014. So it's not been covered quite as many times, but it's still been enough that there's a bunch of different versions.
And while I hate the Maleficent movies with a passion, one thing I will say I do enjoy Lana Del Rey's version of it, of the song. It's more haunting, but it's still good, and I kind of captures the essence of the song. I think I don't like it more than the original, of course, but I don't dislike it.
It is a good cover.
Yeah, you can have love for both and acknowledge the good and the bad. So obviously.
Yeah, like I said earlier, the style of this movie is just gorgeous. Walt apparently wanted a moving illustration, and he apparently told people he did not care how long it would take. That's what he wanted.
Nice.
And they eventually decided on the unicorn tapestries as like the inspiration for the style. That's when they hired Ivan Earl to come on and make paintings, but they eventually just gave him the job as the color stylist and artistic director. And he was basically in charge of the entire look of the whole film.
Yeah, this is a movie that, like, if there were no characters at all in the film, it's like just seeing the backgrounds is enough to make you like focused.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the backgrounds are amazing. Like the whole scene where she's walking in the forest.
Yeah.
Just all of the trees, like everything looks so good. And I love like the square style of the trees.
Yeah.
And like there's so many little details. Like if you look at the ground, there's like little diamond snowflakey looking patterns in the grass. There's so much in these. It looks so cool.
Attention to detail.
Yeah.
That's on my resume.
Unfortunately, all of this ended up leading to the film kind of being a box office bomb because they spent
expensive.
so much money on it.
So Disney wouldn't do another princess film for 30 years.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have an issue with that. It allows more expansion of other things.
Yeah.
Nothing against princess films, but I think they lean so heavily into them to a certain extent.
I guess that was their brand for a lot of their time. A good chunk of their history, I would say.
Oh no, I agree. I just that when you can think outside of your box and see other stuff, I don't know. There's always that.
And they really pivoted away from fairy tales after this.
Yeah.
Like the closest I can think of for a while would be Sword in the Stone, and even that's I wouldn't call fairy tale.
No.
No, that was kind of based on a novel based on Arthur legend.
Yeah. Well, and the late 60s and 70s were really quite an era of, well, even into the 80s was kind of an era of like valley as compared to peak, yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of people call it the dark ages of Disney.
Which is why the Renaissance was like such an important part of their history.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, I can't find the modern equivalent, but the budget was 6 million, but it does say that it earned 5.3 million, obviously lower than 6, but it says that would be equivalent to 55 million in today's money. Maybe even more because that was 2023 when that was updated. So it lost a lot of money at the time. So it was seen as a failure then, but they had so many re-releases that it eventually made money and is now considered one of their best films.
I think there's a good number of Disney films that I think people don't realize were not hits when they came out financially, but
For
became
most of
hits
his early
afterwards.
films weren't. Like Snow White was the only one that really made a lot of money. And after
Yeah.
that, it was hardly
And,
anything, partly
and to
due
be
to the
fair, a
war,
lot of
but
us, yeah, I was going to say that.
Yeah. Well, and I think the Disney name, obviously, the Disney name looking back at all those held a lot more weight than Disney at the time would have.
Of course, yeah.
yeah.
One thing about I don't think we mentioned it, about the Sleeping Beauty art style and cinematography is that this was the first of the Disney films to have the widescreen aspect to it,
Oh,
if I'm not
interesting.
mistaken.
Well, I think Lady and the Tramp was first.
Oh,
'Cause-
sorry. I did forget that.
Well, this was, let me see if that was anything that I wrote down, but I know that this was one of the first for something to do with how it
Maybe it was a
shot.
specific type of widescreen.
Sleeping Beauty was the first animated film to use the Super Technirama 70 widescreen process and was the
Okay.
second full-length animated feature filmed in anamorphic widescreen following Lady and the Tramp.
Okay. That's what
So
it
I'm
was.
not sure what the difference between Super Technirama and just regular anamorphic widescreen is.
It's more epic.
It might just be a brand name too. Like Technicolor is a brand name or whatever. So,
Yeah, it was one of the first to be that wide of a widescreen. But then because of how much of a failure it was monetarily, it was the last film to be hand inked. And they switched to the Xerox process after that, starting with 101 Dalmatians.
that's a lot of inking right there.
That's
Holy
a
crap.
perfect movie right there for
It, it really is. I know Walt hated the Xerox process, but I kind of like how sketchy it looks. And if you're
Yeah,
going to
it fits
do
it.
that, I'm sure the Xerox process saved them not just time, but money. Because can you imagine trying to hand ink all of those dogs?
Every single frame, yeah.
The carpal tunnel for everyone.
Well, you know what you do? You just take your ink and you just kind of like spray it at the screen.
Hope it seeps through.
Yeah, exactly. Also, I never knew the queen actually had a name. The fact that she's called Leah or Leia.
I don't think it was ever said on screen. The Raven also has a name. It's named Diablo, but I don't remember her ever addressing the Raven by name. She just called it my pet.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I know like online and stuff they call it Queen Leah, but I don't know where the source of that is from.
I'm gonna guess it was probably in the original script, and then they just
Could
never
be.
had it in the speaking parts of the script. I'm sure her lines were probably Leia, but nobody ever addressed her by name. She was just the queen.
But like we said earlier, the fairy god, not the fairy god, they're the fairies, the good fairies. They're hands down like the main characters of the film, and like you could like the whole scene of them in the cottage. Like you could watch a sitcom just about these three characters, and it would be
Oh, 100%.
hilarious and entertaining.
My three spinster aunts.
Yeah. It looks awful. That's because it's on you, dear. I love that line.
Well, the fauna trying to bake the cake.
Yeah.
Just like, how did she survive for 16 years with no magic?
Mac and cheese.
Well, she didn't do the cooking, it looks like. So
Apparently not.
remember, just Flora says she's always wanted to, so let her. This will be her last chance to bake the cake.
Okay,
So,
yeah, that's right.
yeah. So
They
someone-
did say at one point that no one had done like complex cooking, or maybe it was complex dressmaking.
Nah.
So anything that they did was very simple. So
Yeah.
And then even the classic, make it pink, make it blue. So where do you
Oh,
guys
yeah.
stand on that? Should it be pink or blue?
I like the one where they both zapped it at the same time and it becomes like splashed tie-dye.
Nice.
Well, it fits with the 60s, really.
That's true.
I always preferred the classic blue simply because there is so much pink
Mm.
within Disney, and it's kind of nice to see them do a lovely shade of blue.
I can never make up my mind. I like both, and it's hard for me to pick.
They should have just made her two dresses and then she could have one for the morning and one for the evening.
There wasn't. It took
There you
so
go.
much for them just to make the one. I can imagine what would happen with two dresses. They probably would have sewed them both together, and there'd just been sleeves at both ends.
I will say the feistiness of Merriweather
Yeah.
makes me go Team Blue every time because she's the one that saved everybody's butts throughout the entire thing.
Oh yeah, she's probably my favorite character in this whole thing. She's hilarious.
They all had just such like good characters, personalities.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I love at the beginning after they've come in and they've started to give the gifts and Maleficent enters. What does she want here? The way she says that line, I love that.
Well, and she has such a like a oh kind of thing throughout. It was adorable.
Then later, after Maleficent's gone and she's done what she can to weaken the curse, they're trying to figure out what they can do because outside everybody's burning all the spinning
Yeah.
wheels, and Merryweather says a bonfire won't stop Maleficent, and she says I'd like to turn her into a fat old hop toad.
Totally. She was hilarious.
And Fauna's like, now dear, that's not a very nice thing to say. Besides, you know our magic doesn't work that way. We can only do good to bring joy and happiness. And she says, well, that would make me happy.
Yeah.
So how does that describe turning Diablo into stone?
That is a good point.
That's not harm. That's good.
I mean,
That's
they
home
are
decor. It's home decor.
Decor.
they are saving Philip because like that thing is screaming and alerting Maleficent wherever they go. So it does help them save Philip. So
Oh yeah.
maybe
Oh,
that's
I
how the
don't
magic got
disagree.
around that.
And maybe he doesn't turn. He doesn't stay stone like for a long time. Too.
Fair. But Maleficent will be gone and he'll be alone in the world.
I think he'll be happy. I think he'll enjoy himself.
I also loved in that same scene where they're like brainstorming what they can do to protect Aurora. Flora suggests turning her into a flower, and Fauna seems to love the idea, but Merryweather says, until Maleficent sends a frost.
Yeah.
And Fauna looks sad. She's like, she always ruins your nicest flowers. And I was like, I love the implication that Maleficent is just always kind of pulling mean pranks on them,
Yeah.
like frosting their flowers. Like this has happened before.
You know, that could turn again, it could be spun off into its own kind of sitcom.
It could.
Definitely.
And then you also had the line about like talking about how they can use their powers and what Maleficent can or can't do. And she says, Maleficent doesn't know anything about love or kindness or the joy of helping others. You know, sometimes I don't think she's really very happy.
That's quite insightful too. Because it's true. I mean, I suppose if you had your head up in that headdress all day, every day, you know, I can't say you might be very happy either.
It's tied a little tight there. Yeah.
Just a tiny bit.
I have a theory that all these ideas are based on like what the writers of the movie were actually brainstorming. Like maybe one of them said, "Oh, let's have them turn Maleficent into a flower." Another one said, "No, because Maleficent would send a frost." So I have a feeling that's what happened in the real life, talks,
Yeah.
and then they decided to put it in the movie because I think the pink and blue debate was based on the writers not being able to decide which of the two it is, so they just put that in the movie. So that's where I feel the other stuff came from too, but I have nothing to back that up.
No, that's okay. And it's one of the early Disneys that really had some, it felt like they had some fun.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What was going on
Especially
behind the
with the
scenes, I
fairies.
can't say. Oh, 100%. Well, and then the liar guy with the
Oh
two.
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
He was sauced at the end of it.
Well, that's how, if you're gonna be celebrating, be celebrating.
You're right, I guess. Go all in. So what was you guys' favorite song besides Once Upon a Dream.
The one that always just randomly pop into my head is the opening song as they're like marching towards the castle to welcome
Yeah.
the new princess.
Hmm.
The Hail to the King, Hail to the Queen, Hail to
Yeah.
the Princess Aurora. For whatever reason, that will go through my head sometimes. I don't know
Wow.
why. It's just, there's something really catchy about that opening song.
I really enjoyed when they're doing the gifts, how you kind of get that really gorgeous choir as the
Oh
Oh,
gifts,
yeah.
like
yeah.
the little vignette
Hmm.
like bits.
Hmm.
And not that it's music, but I loved how when they're like giving the gifts, it's like a galaxy
Yeah.
like comes out of their wand and it's like showing all the things to do with the gift. I love that idea.
I know what my favorite would be. Probably the opening song too, or Scumps, just because of how funny the scene is. The song itself is not that great, but the scene is. It'd been so cool if Maleficent had like a cool Disney villain song.
I think she originally had one, but they cut it.
Yeah.
I don't know how I would feel about that because would it take away from how menacing she is if she was to sing a song?
I don't know. Frollo had a song. Oh, I haven't seen Hunchback yet. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I'm Ursula had a song too, and she's super menacing. So yeah, I don't know. I can't really imagine Maleficent singing. I mean, I can, but in the imagination where she is singing, she's not very threatening. Another one of my favorite lines is after they've met and danced in the forest, Prince Philip goes back to tell his father that he's marrying a peasant girl,
Mm.
and he's freaking out. He says, "You're a prince and you're going to marry a princess." And he says, "Now, father, you're living in the past. This is the 14th century."
Century. Yeah. I love that line too. One of the weirdest things about the movie is after that scene, Philip doesn't talk until for the rest of the movie. That's the last time Prince Philip actually has a line
It is.
after he leaves his father. Yeah, that if you watch the film and you'll notice it, he doesn't say a single word after that scene, and it's so weird. It's like, why? I don't understand. Did the writers do that on purpose, or did it just happen that way? Not a single word does he say after that scene when he talks to his father.
Did he not even speak to
He
Maleficent?
did not speak to Maleficent because he was silent through the whole thing. And when
Huh.
the fairies rescued him, he didn't say a thing either.
He didn't have to. He said everything with his eyes.
That's that's probably what happened there.
I mean, I guess that's true, but I didn't really even think about it. Maybe I guess he didn't need to since I didn't even notice.
Well, I knew about it before, so that's why I recognized it again when I watched it. But next time you watch the movie, Jonathan, look for that. After that scene with him and his father, he never says a word.
Huh. I did not even think about it. I because like the main thing that I know regarding like lines is that Aurora doesn't have very many lines. Like she might sing more than she speaks. And after that point, is her last line when they go to the castle, does she speak at all
After she
when
awakes,
she
no,
wakes up?
no,
So her last line is around the time where she gets the crown, starts crying.
yeah,
Well, even then, she doesn't really speak.
Hmm.
Like she kind of sobs, but otherwise, she doesn't
yeah. There's
say a
no
Yeah,
words
word.
really. Yeah.
Like I think when she comes into the cottage, like that's really the last time she says anything.
I guess so. Like that's one more way that the fairies carry this film. They get all the lines.
And it works.
I did not think of that, but yeah. I mean, yes, it does work because like they're the ones who literally do everything. Like, yes, Philip fights the dragon, but everything that they do makes it so that he can do that. Without them, he would not be able to.
Even they guide the sword from his hand to Maleficent's heart.
Yeah, I did not even register that that was the last time he spoke.
But next time you watch it, let me know.
Yeah. But I also love in a different way the scene after the fairies have brought Aurora back to the castle, that when they leave her alone and Maleficent appears as like a glowing orb in a creepy song. I love the music in that scene. Like slightly dissonant as this thing is like hypnotizing her to head into the wall.
It fits. And it's like when the fairies try to go after her, the wall disappears, The stairs disappears and there just becomes a wall, and then they're trying to like push through it, but then they use the wand to like break the wall and make the stairs appear again. So it's like, why didn't you do that in the first place instead of trying to push the wall, hoping that it would break through? The times of the essence here.
I thought the same thing, but there was a bunch of things where I thought that there would be a more logical way to approach this, but then I'm like, it's a fairy tale.
That's true. Another thing about the movie, it's not a particularly long movie. I think it's only an hour or 18 minutes.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised at how short it was, but it didn't feel short. It felt like the
No, it
perfect
felt
length for
perfect.
the movie.
Yeah,
Yeah, it did what it needed to do.
it did what it needed to do.
I love the scene where the fairies realize that Maleficent has Philip and they have to sneak into her lair, which I did not remember was called the Forbidden Mountain, which I kind of love that it's such an on-the-nose name, but it's kind of perfect.
Well, Disney has announced in Disney World or Villain's Land, they're going to build a Magic Kingdom, and I think Maleficent's castle is going to be like the main center of that.
Hmm, that'd be interesting. That's kind of, I'm trying to think, is there another villain that would have a similar type of castle that could be the centerpiece? She might be the only one. 'Cause like the
Ursula
other,
kind of does.
But I guess that's underwater
yeah, no, I think she's probably the perfect one for that. But the
or in a bog, maybe.
I was just gonna say, when they sneak in, the minions dancing around the bonfire reminded me of Chernobog. The whole scene on Night on Bald Mountain with the fire.
Oh yeah, it's definitely something like that. It's got those vibes.
But yeah, the part where I would have assumed that Philip would have said something is the part where the fairies follow Maleficent down to the dungeon where she's monologuing, explaining her plans. She's going to lock him away until he's an extremely old man before releasing him, because at that point, Aurora, who is asleep, will have not aged and he'll be too old. So she's basically just torturing him for his entire life to be miserable when he's released. It's like, I feel like this is almost more evil than killing him.
Well, they always say there are things worse than death.
Yeah. And then I also loved her line after she's revealed her evil plans. She turns to the raven, "Come, my pet, let's leave our prince with these happy thoughts. A most gratifying day. For the first time in 16 years, I shall sleep well." And then I also love when the fairies sneak in to rescue Philip. Their wands are like little welding torches.
Oh,
The little zapping and sparks as they free him from his chains.
I think that was one of the things I hated about the Maleficent films with Angelina Jolie. They kind of made the fairies like bumbling idiots.
Yes. Like, I don't hate the Maleficent films. I actually kind of like them, but I hate the fairies in them
Mm.
because they just ruined their characters. They're not the same characters. I mean, I don't classify, like, Maleficent is technically a remake, but I just kind of think of it as just a different version
Mm.
of Sleeping Beauty, because Sleeping Beauty is kind of like Cinderella in that there's a bunch of different versions. So I don't look at Maleficent as really much to do with the animated Sleeping Beauty. It's really its own thing. It's not the same story.
I guess they just use the Disney characters, like how their likenesses, I guess.
Kind of, yeah. But even then, it's so different.
Mhm.
The fairies are the worst part of it. They're so completely different. But yeah, this whole scene breaking him out and helping him to get to the castle. I love everything that they do. They're so creative and like they are the heroes of this movie. Like, as much as Philip is the prince going to rescue the damsel in distress, he would not be able to do anything without these fairies. Like, everything that they have to go through to get out of this castle, he would have been dead. Like, even if he had somehow managed to get out of the chains without the fairies and their little welding wands, as soon as he gets outside, there's all these minions, and they're like trying to crush them with boulders and shoot them with arrows and douse them with acid or something. Maybe it's boiling oil, I don't know. But then the fairies turn them into bubbles and flowers and rainbows. I love how creative they are with trying to fight their way out of this without actually harming the minions.
It's only
Other
Diablo who
than
gets harmed.
other than the crow or raven who is turned to stone.
I was gonna say.
But then you have Maleficent finally waking up or something. I'm assuming she had fallen asleep because she said she
They
was
had
going
her
to sleep
good
the best
16
time in
years sleep.
16
Yeah.
years. But She sees what's going on. She curses the castle, surrounding it in thorns, and then he starts cutting his way through it. And I guess she finally realizes that if she wants the job done right, she's got to do it herself. And this is where you get the line, "Now you shall deal with me, O prince, and all the powers of hell." And then turning into the best dragon in animated history. I
Oh,
love this
that's so
dragon
statement.
so much. Maleficent's dragon is just so cool. I love how it looks. I love the horns.
It's very European dragon base, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I love the color scheme, the purple and black, the green flames. Everything about the battle just it looks so amazing.
I think I would have liked her more if she was a dragon for more of the movie.
I mean, I would have loved more dragon.
Yeah.
But what we got was amazing.
What we
I
got?
just love this dragon so much.
The color scheme is perfect.
For a while, there was a rumor that Lego was going to release a huge buildable Maleficent dragon, and then they ended up releasing like this small thing. I'm hoping that they release two because they did that with the buildable Simba. They released a little Simba for kids and then a huge buildable Simba for adults. And I'm hoping that eventually we get a huge buildable Maleficent because I really would love to build a giant Maleficent dragon.
That would be cool. I don't know who my favorite movie dragon would be.
Like if anybody just mentions a dragon in a movie, this is the first one that comes to mind. The second
Nice.
for me would be Draco from Dragonheart. I also love him,
I
but
haven't seen that.
oh, it's good. I haven't seen it in years, but I loved that movie. But Maleficent as the dragon, she's so cool. I love her design.
She is very good.
Another thing that I love about the scene is Merryweather, who also wants to help fight, but the others like have to hold her back as the prince is charging in.
Yeah.
Well, if she could turn a crow into stone, I don't see why she couldn't turn a dragon into stone.
There you go.
I guess she doesn't have enough stone magic in her welding wand.
They
That
don't want a
happens.
sequel to happen where the stone is finally broken and she's released. Speaking of which, actually, I think in Sword in the Stone, when Madame Mim turns into a pink, no, she turns into, is it a pink dragon? Yeah, I think it's a pink dragon because they didn't want to do purple like Maleficent's dragon, if I'm not mistaken.
Doesn't it have spots too?
It has spots too, yeah.
It's been a while since I've watched Sword in the Stone.
Well, it gets spots when Merlin turns into a
Oh,
germ.
that's right. He makes her sick. But yeah, this whole dragon battle ends with Maleficent's about to win, but then Flora flies in and enchants his sword, making it so that he can throw it directly into Maleficent's heart, and she collapses off the bridge down into her own flames, and then you look down and all that's left is the sword stabbing through her cloak.
Nice.
That was a perfectly good cloak too, though. Someone could have used that.
I mean, it's
Getting
still there. They could go and sew up the sword hole.
Sword.
Yeah, but then you get the leftover bits of dragon and human, and
It's a whole thing.
yeah. Plus, you got to get down there.
I mean, if somebody really wanted Maleficent's cloak, they could wash it.
True. Or they might just
Washing.
not wash it and go essence of Maleficent.
There we go. This is the 14th century.
Exactly.
And then, of course, Philip goes in, finds Aurora, wakes her up with a kiss, and then everybody in the kingdom is waking up. They come down, they find out that the peasant girl was actually Aurora.
Because like when the kings were talking before they fell asleep, Hubert was trying to break the news to King Stefan about how his son found a peasant girl
Yes.
to marry instead. So when they regain consciousness, it continues there, but it's luckily just in time, like you say. That's when Aurora and Philip appear.
Yeah, and he's now utterly confused.
Yeah.
But he eventually just shrugs and accepts it.
You get to kiss on the cheek. That's all you really need to start understanding things.
Yep, that'll do it.
Yep. Also, can we talk about how much of a total champ Samson is going through all of the briars and stuff?
I forgot about Samson. Yes.
I didn't even think of that. That would have been horrible for his legs.
Yeah. Ouch.
You know, all the Disney horses have such cool names.
They do.
Samson and who's the horse in Tangled?
Is it
Maximus.
Spartacus? Yeah, Maximus.
Philippe in Beauty and the Beast.
Trying to remember what the horse's name from The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad.
Did I have him?
And I'm talking about the one from the Mr. Toad segment, not the one
Yeah.
from...
Oh, Cyril Proudbottom.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
He'll say, he doesn't really have a cool name.
Yeah.
Sounds like a pretty cool name.
I like that. Yeah.
Anyways, that's basically the end of the movie. You just have them dance, and then Flora finally, after the whole movie, realizes somehow now she realizes that the dress has been blue this whole time, and then they end up with another mini battle for the color of the dress.
You know, it would have been really awesome if Fauna had snuck in a green blast, turned it green. That would have been amazing.
Like the camera pans to Fauna and with Merryweather and Flora's face looking at her.
Yeah,
And she just has a wicked smile on her face.
oh
And it just
yeah,
ends there.
total bombastic side eye.
Yeah.
That feels like something that would happen if this was made in like the mid 2000s. Have Flora giving them a little smirk, and then the camera like
Credits roll.
closes in on her face, like the circle closing, and it's just her smirking at them, and then the credits start rolling.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's Sleeping Beauty.
That's the community in a nutshell.
Yep.
One of these days I'll have to like actually make a ranking, but this probably would end up near the top of my ranking. I was surprised at how good this was. Like I knew it was a good movie, but like just watching it through, I was like, this is really good.
It's really good and entertaining.
Yeah,
It is.
it's both entertaining and from an artistic point, just beautiful.
Very.
And doesn't really have much like filler, like maybe the scum scene, but that's kind
That's
of
the
it, really.
only thing that I can think of. It's like, what does this add other than humor, I guess? It kind of feels like it comes out of nowhere. I think it's just there to flesh out the characters of the kings more.
Yeah.
But other than that, it doesn't feel like it doesn't belong. So yeah, it's a really tight script.
It doesn't annoy me like sometimes in Cinderella, like the scenes with the mice, sometimes that can go on a little too long for me.
Yeah, that's true. No, I don't hate those scenes, but they do feel more like Looney Tunes almost than Disney. They do feel like they're from something else. But everything in this that is funny feels like it belongs in the movie. Like it's all character-based stuff with the main characters. It's not like side characters like the mice going off and doing mice things. It's the fairies doing things that advance the plot. And it's funny and it works.
Yeah, it's actually connected to Aurora somehow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good script. It's good art, good music. I feel like I should reserve this for other films, but it's almost like a perfect film. If it's as close to perfect as you can get it without being exactly perfect, I guess maybe. It's very close to perfect.
Very high praise, yeah. Oh yeah, Nikki.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think it definitely follows that. I mean, it's been probably my top 5 since I was a kid.
Nice.
Not that my top 5 is kind of weird. It's got Oliver and Company and this and other random ones, but it's a classic for a reason. It has stood the test of time, and it stands head and shoulders above a lot because of the care and time that went into it. So
very much so.
Yeah. Once I finally get around to making my ranking, I'm sure it'll be towards the top because it's so good. Okay, well, that is probably all we have to say on Sleeping Beauty. Until next time, you guys want to let people know where they can find you if they'd like more from you, Mark?
Sure. You can check out my blogs. I have 2. The first one is Animation Commendation at theanimationcommendation.com. I post animated film reviews, top 13 lists, and I run my own game show there, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire Animation Edition. I just recently finished season 10 of that.
wow.
And you can check it out. And I've had multiple guests over the season, including Jonathan. He's been on a few times over the season, so check that out. And I have my other blog, My Live Action Disney Project, at myliveactiondisneyproject.com, where I'm trying to watch and review every single theatrically released live action Disney film ever made. I'm still doing that. I think the last film I did was White Fang, so just, check me out there. Thanks.
Did you review Maleficent?
Yes. And the sequel, which it's both good and bad. It's bad because I had to watch them, but it's good because I don't have to watch them again. So
you can rip him a new one if you really want to.
Nah, I'm good.
Okay, good to know.
If it wasn't so bad, it's good film, maybe.
Yeah, that's kind of my specialty. So
Yeah, where can people find you for more So Bad It's Good films, Nikki?
You can find me on YouTube at Trivial Theater. I do a wide array of random, obscure, and straight up bad movies. Being that it is November or October, not November. If you happen to see this, I am in the middle of doing a bunch of spooky month stuff. Everything from silent 20s movies all the way up to, I think, 80s, if everything follows through the way it should. I'm also, come November, I'm going back to short form riffing of PSAs and educational videos, which are fun, and I'm doing those with fellow creators as well as friends of the channel.
This will probably come out in November, so that'll be what they can find. And if they want the spooky stuff, they can go back a month.
Absolutely. Well, you can find spooky stuff across my channel's history, basically. It's a good chunk of it, so.
Probably any time of year.
Oh, yeah. Horror is good anytime, really. Good bad movies are good anytime, too, so.
That's really true.
And if you get the combination, you're in good shape.
Okay, well, we will definitely see you both for more in the future.
That's not just a threat, that's a promise.
Whether you like it or not.
Thanks for listening to the Disney Movie Marathon. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and follow my co-hosts as well. My Linktree and all of our links will be in the description below. If you want more of my content, all my podcasts are available on YouTube as well as most podcast platforms. If you enjoyed this show, check out one of the other podcasts or check out my Patreon for bonus and extended episodes you won't find anywhere else. We'll be back soon with another brand new episode, so thanks for listening and we'll see you next time.